We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Bucknell Women's Lacrosse Through the Decades. My name is Todd Newcomb, and tonight we have the 1980s here, and we've got some great alums joining head coach Jackie Dando and one of our current players, Michelle Melville. Michelle is a senior defender from New York on our team, and we thank her for taking the time out of her schedule to join. We want to thank Geisinger as our sponsor. Geisinger has been absolutely fantastic throughout the pandemic, helping people on the front lines every day, and they do a great job with our Bucknell student athletes here year in and year out. So we want to thank Geisinger. As I mentioned, it's the 1980s. I want to introduce our guest, and then I'll turn it over to Coach. First of all, from the class of 1981, Liz Ravenald. Liz was a team captain in 1981. She was also a 4-year letter winner and the team captain of the women's basketball program. Our next guest is Sue Gray from the class of 1984. She was a team captain in 1984, and she graduated with 8 school records. 36 years after graduating, she still holds the single game goals scored mark at 10, which she accomplished against Northeastern in 1984. She holds the single season goals mark at 52, also set in 1984, and ranks 5th on the career chart with 127 goals. Sue also was an all East Coast Conference team selection in 1983. She was invited to try out for the U.S. Women's Lacrosse Association national team, and she also played field hockey and captained the 1983 team. Sue was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 1996. Our next guest from the class of 1985 is Suzanne Ramage. She was a team captain in 1985. She was an all East Coast Conference team selection in both 1984 and 1985. She also played field hockey and captained that team in 1984. She won the Bison Club Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. Our next guest from the class of 1987 is Heidi Zoller. Heidi was a team captain in 1987. She was also a all East Coast Conference team selection in 1986. And our final guest from the class of 1990 is Rini Soteropoulos. She was the team captain of the 1990 team. So, Coach, we've got a great group. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, hi guys, welcome. It's nice to meet everyone. So a little bit about myself and about the program quickly before we begin tonight. I actually just came to Bucknell as a head coach last year in January of 2020. So this has been a very different year and quite a transition with COVID. I grew up outside of Philadelphia and then went on to play, kind of similar to some of you guys, lacrosse for 4 years in college and field hockey for 2 at a Division III school called Messiah College. And then I got into coaching right away. I've coached for 12 seasons now. I started at Haverford College, then I went to Villanova University, and then for 7 years I was a head coach for the first time at a Division III school called Lebanon Valley, and then just this January I came to Bucknell. So it's been quite a transition. I'm really happy to be here. It was a great first year despite all the challenges. And one of the biggest points is getting to know our alumni group better and connecting our groups, as I know there's been a lot of transition in the program. So I'm from Pennsylvania originally. I'm excited to stay in Pennsylvania hopefully for a little bit, and I'm excited to continue to impact our program in meaningful ways. And then on the call also is Shelly. Shelly's a senior women's lacrosse player, defender from New York, and I'm sure she'll introduce herself when she asks some questions as well. So the first question is if you can each explain what you have been doing since graduation, where you are living, explain family, career path, etc. So Heidi, do you want to start us off?
Hello. I'm right near where you coached. I'm in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
My neighbor is the head football coach for Villanova, also dealing with COVID. Currently, I'm a physician. I was a family practitioner, and then I moved into occupational medicine. And I have 2 daughters who were soccer players, not lacrosse players. And one just graduated from Penn State, main campus this past year, and the other is at Shippensburg.
Thanks.
Anymore. I did not coach lacrosse. Lacrosse and I took a little hiatus. Well, no, I played club for a number of years after college in the Philadelphia area and had a wonderful time. And then probably by the time I was 29, my knees couldn't take it anymore.
Sue.
Hi, I'm in Severna Park, Maryland, and let's see, after graduation, I started in the finance division of a bank and hated it. But anyway, went on to have a family, and I have a boy and a girl, and they both played lacrosse, and my daughter graduated from Princeton and playing lacrosse and field hockey, and then my son played at Washington and Jefferson, which is out in Pittsburgh. And yeah, so actually we played against Rini a couple times, but yeah, I kind of went from, that, and now I actually went back to school when I was 46, and I'm a physical therapist assistant working in an outpatient clinic, and did the whole thing, club and everything. And so I kind of retired. When I went back to school, I kind of retired coaching, but coached a lot, 20 years of field hockey and 10 years of high school lacrosse. So stayed with that for a long time. Still love the sport. It's the best sport ever. So.
Thanks, Sue. Liz?
Oh, you're muted, Liz. You're muted. You're muted. There's muting. There we go.
Okay, how about now? So I'm a lawyer in Pittsburgh, and I started out doing mostly commercial defense work for a defense firm in Pittsburgh, and then I switched to plaintiff's work, and so that's what I've been doing for about 4 or 5 years. Class actions, and also individual plaintiff's employment work. I have a son who is in his 3rd year at Temple. Loves it, but they're all off campus and it's all remote, so it's a matter of whether it's there or it's in Pittsburgh. I didn't get into coaching. I did coach 1 season for Taylor Autodice in Pittsburgh, which was a club sport. But after that, I did not coach, but I still absolutely adore lacrosse, and I have a lot of fun memories.
Thanks, Liz. Suzanne?
So I graduated and went to New York City and worked for a brokerage firm. I've never picked up a lacrosse stick since the last game. Kind of walked away from any kind of sports living in New York other than running. I ran. I never got involved in anything else. Got married, and I have 3 kids and 2 boys and a girl. The boys have played club stuff. One graduated from Northeastern playing hockey, one from Tufts playing rugby, which was an eye-opener. And our daughter goes to Colorado College, and she's the junior playing lacrosse there. So currently we're trying to figure out, will it happen? Will it not happen? She's studying quote unquote remotely, but she is heading to Montana with some of her fellow lacrosse players. We had lived in Connecticut for 24 years. We have a second home on Nantucket. And when she went off to college, we moved to Nantucket year round. So that's where I am. But she's like, I think we're going to go to Montana. We can study anywhere. So she was supposed to be in Copenhagen for the semester. So we're kind of viewing it as a little bit of a not so bad, but it's been a lot of fun watching CC play lacrosse. The season was aborted last year. We were out there to watch all their games, and we sort of hustled home in March, but it's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Suzanne. And Rini.
One quick question. Suzanne, you know Ella McMullen?
I do not.
Colorado College. I thought she played lacrosse for them too. It's a good friend of ours' daughter who goes there and was stuck in Peru for a while during COVID. with
Yeah.
Colorado College.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'll ask Abigail. I actually,
Okay.
yeah, so I'll ask her. I don't know that answer. I don't know
All
her.
right, that's okay. Just ask.
And Rini?
Oh, hi, Heidi. Good to see you again. Hi. Hi. Yeah, I graduated and then did the finance thing in New York for a year and then quit to come back to Bucknell to be the grad ass, where we hung out with Nuke many times at the bar under Jen Averill. And then I got my grad degree in ed because I wanted to teach. So that was a great conversation with my parents. No, I don't want to work in finance. I want to be a teacher. So that worked out really well. Anyway, bebopped around for a year and then ended up at Severn School in Severna Park, teaching and coaching lacrosse and field hockey for 20 years and then resigned 4 years ago because I have 4 sons and I needed to watch them play. So I have a freshman at Hobart. He's a goalkeeper, which is awful. And then I have a 10th grader at Severn who's a long pole. He'll go and play somewhere. And then I have twins in 9th grade who one's a soccer player and one likes computers. So I don't know what happened, but we'll be okay. And I teach. I'm the history department chair there. So I've been coaching in one way or another for a really long time. And had I had a daughter, I would have done club somewhere. But nope, didn't happen. 4 sons. So I'll probably get back into coaching at some point when they graduate and I, have some more time. But so I teach history at right near where Sue Gray lives and works. Yep.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, the first question is, take us back to the beginning and tell us how you wound up at Bucknell and how you came to be on the women's lacrosse team. So Liz, we'll start with you for this one.
I'll just unmute myself. I had not played lacrosse in high school. In high school, I played volleyball, I played basketball, and I played softball. When I first got to Bucknell, I met a group of people, and I think 1 or 2 of them decided that they were going to try out for field hockey. And I tried out for field hockey because I really liked them and I loved the team. So I wasn't the greatest field hockey player, too tall and had a problem bending. So that was not my best sport, but I still played it and I loved the teammates so much that I tried out for lacrosse in the spring and I fell in love with the sport. It's the most beautiful sport around.
I would agree. Sue, how did you end up at Bucknell?
So I played in high school. I played all 3 sports in high school. And so I was looking and, I wanted that small college feeling. So I looked at Lafayette, I looked at Lehigh, I looked at Franklin and Marshall, and then we drove on the campus of Bucknell. And I looked at my mother and I said, this is where I want to go. Like there was just no question. And at the time, recruiting was very iffy type thing, but I was actually talking to Terry Grebe and Sally Starr kind of about like, play basketball and do lacrosse. And so it was just like a no-brainer. And I got that tiny little envelope, you got the big envelope, you think you're in, and Bucknell came in this just regular envelope. And I was like, it's a rejection. And I got in, but that was the best decision ever. And so I was going and my brother's like, well, you should try out for field hockey. And I was like, our field hockey was so weak in high school. And he's like, no, they need a goalie. Why don't you try out for a goalie? So literally I just suited up because back then they had varsity and JV. And so they had a varsity goalie, they didn't have a JV goalie. And I'm like, sure, I'll volunteer. And then just like Liz said, I mean, the teammates were amazing. I played 1 season of basketball, and then after that, I just stuck with field hockey and lacrosse. And so many played both, and they're just your lifelong friends. And so, I just fell in love. But driving on the campus just sold me literally the minute I drove on, and then everything about it. Talking to Terry and Sally, and I'm like, this is where I want to be. So yeah.
Thanks, Sue. Suzanne.
So I had an uncle that went to Bucknell. My family were both from upstate. My parents both grew up there in large families, and I just always wanted to go to Bucknell. I can't honestly tell you why I wanted to go. It just was like, I just wanted to go to Bucknell. I don't even know if I'd been there. And then I got in and played field hockey. And back then I didn't know what I wanted to major in, and I had taken some aptitude test. And it said, oh, you would be a perfect mechanical engineer. So that's what I entered as, which is not what I would be a perfect person. That was not my role. And my first semester I played field hockey, almost flunked out, but somehow convinced my parents that I really should pick up this sport of lacrosse. All my friends, it'll be worse if I don't play lacrosse. I think I just have to change my major. And somehow I convinced them to allow me to do that. And as Sue Gray was referencing, I was mortified to learn how to catch a lacrosse ball. I was like, I am not going out in the middle of that field house. And I learned how to do that in the locker room. And so having never played, but I always thought it was like, I'd played soccer as a kid. I played field hockey. I'd played all these field sports, but not lacrosse. And then, you know, I was able to pick it up and be a strong defender. So
She
I don't know.
was great. She was so fast that we're just like, just run with the ball. Just scoop it up and just run. And
then
she did.
Like, oh my God, I got to give it to somebody else. I don't know what to do right now. I got to get rid of it. I don't know what to do. It was like a hot potato. Who's around? Who can take it from me? I don't know what to do.
Just run.
Yeah, and that's when there was no boundaries.
Oh, yes.
You know, the
Right.
field sloped. So it was kind of natural boundaries. And I'm like, I can get closer to that ball than whoever I'm playing, you know, running against. So yeah, that was my strength. I played wing. And that's what's so funny watching lacrosse now. You know, my husband will say to me, what are the rules? I'm like, I have no idea. So anyway, that's how I ended up there and playing the sport. It was good fun.
Thanks, Suzanne. Rini.
I'm a little sheepish telling this story, actually. It was back in the day when you didn't do a lot of applications, right? You just didn't. I did 4. I got into 4 schools. One was Bucknell, one was Penn, and then 2 others. So I was going to go to Penn. I grew up outside of Philly and went to Penncrest High School in Media, Pennsylvania. And my best friend from high school got into Bucknell, and she was coming up to visit. So she said, do you want to go? And I'm like, sure, I'll come. I mean, it was spring fling weekend, actually, at Bucknell. And I went up and we had such a good time, and I went home and I told my parents I want to go to Bucknell, and my parents are Greek immigrants. So actually, and this is, I swear to you, this is a true story. The Penn coach had reached out to me. I was going to play there. I figured I could play at Bucknell because the program was, you know, the program. And my mom is reading through one of the books about Bucknell. Like, they're Greek immigrants. They came here as adults. So one part of the old Bernbach, I remember, is the college book, said Bucknell is 70% Greek. At which point she looked at me and said, oh my God, Rini, why did we not know about this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. So I went there, and that's how, I mean, I had a great time. It was, that is exactly what happened. And yeah, and it was terrific, but that's how I ended up at Bucknell. So I said bye to Penn, and it was a little too close, I think. It may be a little too urban. I wanted a little, you know, Bucknell was beautiful. Spring fling weekend was awesome. As you know, it was terrific. And so that's where I ended up.
Thanks, Rini. And Heidi, how did you end up at Bucknell?
Oh my God, Rini, I love that story. Like Rini, I was thinking about going to Penn because I would have been 7th or 6th generation there. And I really didn't want to live in a city. And I went and did an overnight at Bucknell. There were some people in my school. So Shelly, just so you know, we were all like, SATs, sure, we'll take them. Like college, sure. It was a different world in the 80s. So like, we kind of sound like, but we're like, I think that's the way we were. We were just like, okay, so-and-so I know applied to Bucknell, so I'll apply. So anyway, so I went and did an overnight and had the most amazing time. Had no intention of playing lacrosse whatsoever. I'd been out of high school for a year. I graduated as a junior and kind of wandered around because I wasn't ready for school. And then I got to Bucknell, having a great time. And all of a sudden I was watching the lacrosse team practice. So it's spring. I guess I decided I was pledging in the spring. In the spring, I don't know when they pledge now for sororities, but tried out, which doesn't exist there anymore and it's been kicked off for life. They were all lacrosse players. And so I went and watched them practice. And there were, as I said before, there were probably 12 or 14 freshmen my year that joined the team. And I was like, I can do this. I can do this. So I walked on and I made the team and I stayed. And by the end of my senior year, I was the only woman standing. And Rini, so Sue Ramage, who doesn't remember me, I know, I don't care. I love you, Sue. And Sue Gray, who was just phenomenal, were like me to you.
Right.
Right? Like they were the Trojans that had been there. And I was like this little like, woo. Right. Exactly. So anyway, and I loved it, but I wish that we had stayed Division II.
Thanks, Heidi. The next question is, talk about how you matured as a player on the field from day one of freshman year until your senior season. Rini, do you want to start us off with this one?
That's a tough question. I'm not entirely sure. It was a rough 4 years from 86 to 90. We had 3 coaches in 4 years. I would say the first 3 years were rough. I'm not, my freshman year, I'm not sure Martha was, she wasn't going to stay. She was going somewhere. And then, the next coach for 2 years was a train wreck. So that's a tough question for me to answer. I do know that my senior year was my best year. I think we had some much more stability as a coach, and then I was made captain. So you just kind of mold yourself and these are the shoes you're supposed to fill, and then you fill them, right? So I think when you're asked by a good coach to rise to the occasion, you do. So I would chalk it up to that. Like it's the first 3 years are a blur, but the fourth year was much better. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Thanks, Rini. Suzanne, anything you remember?
Well, it's mostly, I didn't know the sport at all. So just learning the sport. But for me, just being a part of the team, I didn't rush. As I said, my first semester was not so great academically. And that was a spring rush. And then I'm the kind of person, I never did a late rush. So for me, being a part of the team was really important to me. And sports have always been so important to me. And it's always been such a big part of my life, which I really didn't realize that when I left Bucknell, I kind of walked away from that. I loved having kids. I loved being a mom. And I started doing long distance triathlon stuff and competing. And I was like, I really liked sports. I haven't done this in so long. So, but anyway, it just, growing as an athlete, I didn't know what I was doing the first year. I just ran fast, like Sue Gray said. So.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Yep.
Sue, anything to add?
I think for all of us, you come into this program. I mean, I remember Liz, and I mean, Liz is tall. So, I mean, I'm just kind of like physically looking up to her, but, you look to those upperclassmen and they just set the tone for the season. And I just feel like I was really fortunate to have every single year just amazing captains and just wanting to kind of, be like them. I mean, the girls on our team were just, they were fierce competitors, but at the end of the day, they were just great people and trying to say, you know what, I want to be like that. And by the time you get all of a sudden you got your senior year, and that's, you kind of just grow into that. You kind of mold it as you go along, and just fortunate to have so many great people before me that by the time I got to my senior year, I was like, that I could be a leader. Like Heidi coming in as a freshman, ball of energy, and just hoping that I could do for her what, Liz and Ann and Jeannie did for me. So, yeah.
Thanks, Sue. Heidi, do you have any thoughts on freshman to senior year?
Okay. So poor Rini. I'm so sorry, Rini, that you were during this time. So anyway, so when Sue Gray and Suzanne were there, it was like we made it to the NCAA Division II, like Final Four, I think. I mean, there was just so much wonderfulness. And then my sophomore year, great, fun people. Pam Gilg and Linda Goldstein, and we did great fun stuff and really fun people. But that's again when we kind of hit this Division I world when we had been Division II. In my senior year, I still played, I still showed up, and just tried to lead by example instead of by voice. And we had a really fun, great year. And Rini, Cindy Damel, and Beth Hoddle were all still close and go out, and you have to come up sometime. Pencrest girl. And I've made some of the best friends ever in my life.
And Liz, any other thoughts from your experience as freshman and senior year?
Well, I want to go back to, in part, when I first came to Bucknell. For me, it was down to Bucknell and Wake Forest. And I'd visited Wake Forest, and it just there wasn't that, I don't know, it was too Southern for me. Let's put it that way. So when I got on campus at Bucknell, it was just so gorgeous that it was immediate decision on my part to go there. But when I was in high school, I was so burnt out from basketball and from being always the one that everyone turned to score and to win the game or lose the game. So I had decided when I went to Bucknell that I was not going to play any sports whatsoever. But that changed after just a couple of days of being on campus and meeting some people. And then I started playing field hockey, and then I played basketball, and then I played lacrosse. And I did that essentially for 4 years, except for I did the London semester. And I will say that it was the most profoundly valuable experience I've had in my life, and mostly because of my teammates. And that I met from freshman year to senior year, and I made some unbelievable lifelong friends who are still friends today. And my son does not. He is a computer science major, and he did row in high school, but he didn't want to row at Temple because it was just too much. But I try to impart on him just the value of teamwork, and also just the value of the friends you can meet in college, and in particular in my case, it all surrounded the sports teams. But it was just unbelievable.
Thanks, Liz. All right, Shelly, I'm going to throw it to you for a question.
Sure. Thanks, Coach. Hi, officially. I'm Shelly Melville. I'm a senior here this year. I'm a defender from upstate New York, and currently I'm a double major in psychology and sociology. Looking to go into sports and exercise psychology field, hopefully, soon. But yeah, so my first question for you guys is, what advice would you give me or any of the other players currently on our team about the lacrosse experience at Bucknell? Heidi, do you want to start us off?
First, I have to ask, did your mom go to Bucknell?
No, actually, I'm the first one from my family to come here.
There was a Shelley, there was a Melville when I was there, so just asking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What advice would I give you for, repeat the question one more time.
What advice would you give me or any of my current teammates about the college lacrosse experience at Bucknell?
Well, I think just like Sue said, enjoy your teammates. I think I forgot to do that, for a couple years, in my first couple years, and took it a little too seriously and felt, so there are some people on your team that are, well, I don't know what it's like at Bucknell now, but back then there were people like Sue and Suzanne, who had learned to play lacrosse. You weren't recruited. You weren't out there like, you're Division I playing and it's hardcore. It was that there were people who were out there because they love sport. And then there were people out there because they just love lacrosse. And to learn how to not have such super high, intense expectations of your teammates and just love them for loving sport, not necessarily because I think I can't quite explain it, but what I learned by the time I ended was that it wasn't about, whether everyone was the best player on the field. It's who they were as people and how great they are as human beings. And that it all, in the end, whether you win or lose, you're still going to be really good friends. Right? I don't know. I'm out.
Thanks. Sue, anything?
I think, the most important as a senior is kind of taking the whole team, and especially the freshmen who are so nervous. I really feel that learning to, one, trust each other, and second, support each other. And I think support each other can be easy when you're on the field, but say people on the sidelines. So, everybody has a role, it's just like a play. There's no small role. So maybe it's somebody on the sidelines that, doesn't get in any games or something, but they do something great in practice. And you as a captain or some of your seniors constantly building them up, like, hey, that was a great play. And so that when they walk off the field, oh my God, that senior told me that I had a great play. And believe it or not, your words, especially for the underclassmen, kind of just saying something as simple as like, oh my God, that was a great pass. Way to have your head up. Just something like that. They leave that field like on a high note. And, taking those young players and folding them into the team is just so important. And the more that the young ones know that the older ones care, that's where you're going to get that team unity. And, later on, I'll talk to Jackie, but, about advice, the more cohesive you are as a group, the better you're going to do as a team. So win or lose, but, make sure you're scooping up the young ones or the ones on the sideline that, play one game all season. They're just as important as everybody else. So.
Thank you. Liz, any thoughts?
I really don't have much to add to what Sue said. I think one thing that lacrosse taught me and helps me today was just, and I was a defender, was just to be aggressive. And I think, I know Nance used to say that she was afraid of going up against me because I was so aggressive in defending. But, and that, even to this day, that's translated into, in the courtroom setting, I am particularly aggressive on cross-examination. And I think that was invaluable to me. As far as being an example for the underclassmen, I agree completely with Sue. Just if there's any way to reach out, and I know it's very difficult as a senior because you're already thinking about leaving and what you're going to do next. But to the extent that you can reach out and help somebody who may be struggling on the team or who may just need that little extra bit of support, it's great.
Thanks, Liz. Suzanne, anything to add?
And now it's kind of the same sentiment is, people all are going to have their roles on the team. And everybody has a bad day. People have good days. But when people have bad days, don't judge them by that. And because you have no idea what else is going on in their life. Someone could show up at a game and they don't do what they're supposed to do, but you can't get mad at them because who knows what phone call they might have gotten and that's like a life lesson. Just don't judge people by one performance or, you got to take it in. You're not walking in their shoes. And I agree with Sue. I watch my daughter's games and they have a large D3 successful program. And, some of the players never play, but every time a goal scored, they're leading that line for like high-fiving and rolling down the sideline and stuff. So those guys are just as important as the star scorer.
Yeah, absolutely. Reedy, any final thoughts?
I agree with what everyone said. I will add, my only thought is, as, being an old lady, that you, at the beginning of March when you have, I don't know, a 6 a.m. practice maybe, or it's rained for the 4th day in a row and it's muddy and it will never be warm in Lewisburg and it will never be sunny. And you're like, oh my God, I just want the season to be over. It will be over. It will end. So enjoy that disgusting rainy March 3rd practice, or the road trip that you have to take, I don't know, up to Holy Cross, or, cross your fingers, it happens. And you've been on the road for 5 hours and you have a test the next day and it's like 11 o'clock on a Sunday. And it's easy to be like, this sucks. And fine, you can say that because it kind of sort of does, but it will end and you'll be sad it's over. That's what I got.
We saw that in quarantine, right, Shelley?
Oh, yeah.
It was over really fast and we were on a long, long bus ride.
Yep, 12 hours back to Lewisburg. Nothing like it.
Where were you coming back from?
South Carolina.
Oof.
We played Furman and Campbell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was our spring break trip when we found out.
That's a dagger. That's a dagger. Yeah.
It was an emotional bus ride, to say the least.
Yeah, tough for our seniors especially. Shelley's lucky she gets another year, but. Okay, so the next question is, who is the teammate you most admired throughout your career and why? Liz, do you want to start us off?
Well, there's so many to choose from. That's a tough one. There are a lot of people I admired. I really admired Jill Henry, just because she was juggling a lot and she did so well in everything that she did. She was so accomplished academically and certainly in the sport. And she just was an incredibly interesting person. I admired my roommate, Laura Kinney, because she was the only person I knew who could smoke a pack of cigarettes and then run cross country or run a long distance. And she just had that competitive fire in her, and again, just incredibly intelligent and accomplished. And I feel like that was true for most of the people that I played with. I mean, truly all around athletes and extremely intelligent, attractive, beautiful people. So those are the two that come to mind most immediately.
I want to let Shelley know that back then we had smoking rooms. So you would choose a roommate who was a fellow smoker. That is so non-existent, but I'm just letting you know it's a different world.
Heidi, do you have a favorite teammate from Bucknell?
All of the teammates that for when I was there towards the last couple years, the fact that everyone was showing up to practice, who was coming to play games, knowing that, we're going to get our asses whooped. I looked up to them all. I mean, I was so proud of everyone just to show up, to be there at practice. We had to carry our water, so it's a totally different world, Shelley, but that cornfield all the way across, all the way at the top on the other side, which is now some pretty something, was just a cornfield. And the boys, their lacrosse field was right next to the stadium. So they would walk right out, right out of the field house. They would walk right out and go to their field. We had to co-sign each other to carry our own water all the way across and walk it all the way up to that top field and bring it back. Like, no one gave a SHID about women's sports back then. And we worked hard, you know, as a team, and we showed up, and it was awesome. There is one player in Sue's year, or Suzanne's year, which was Lauren. Is it Lauren Stein?
Yeah, Lauren Strine. She was so tall and like, she was from
Yes.
media. She was my roommate. Yeah.
Like, her name has not come up to me until this whole conversation, and she was brilliant and strong, and I was D-wing. I don't know, I can't remember what she played, but I just thought she was an unbelievable stoic woman that I don't know what she's doing today, but she was pretty amazing.
Thanks, Heidi. Sue, do you have a favorite teammate from your years at Bucknell?
You know, of course, my whole class. I loved my whole class, but looking up to the upperclassmen and Liz and Sue, you'll remember these, but Jeannie Minahan and Ann Kennedy, and they were just, you know, ferocious on the field, just go-getters. You remember Jeannie was just crazy, but you get off the field and they were the kindest, just most genuine, just loving people you could ever ask for. And you know, I'd come knocking at their room and like help with this assignment, and they would just sit down, but just, oh my gosh, they just had such wonderful, wonderful hearts, and it just shone through. And as soon as they stepped off the field, you know, they kind of put all that, you know, away, and then they just shined, both of them. So.
Thanks, Sue. Rini, do you have a favorite teammate?
Yeah, sure. A lot. But the one I looked up to was probably Meeker Mannion. Michelle, I thought she was coming tonight. No? Was she on the list? You're so muted, Noob. You should be good at this by now. Like this, you've probably done a million of these.
He was on the list.
Never responded.
Yeah. Oh, rat. So yeah, I mean, she was, you know, a lot of us were athletes who played lacrosse, but she was a lacrosse player. And she was, you know, graceful. She was a very graceful player, and just a neat woman. And she was always kind of just low key. And I thought to myself, if I could play like anyone, I would like to play her. But she was like, you know, 5 inches taller than me, and you know, faster. So that never happened. But I would like to have played like her. Yeah. So Meeker, Michelle Mannion. Now that would be my answer.
Thanks, Rini. And lastly, Suzanne.
I don't know if she heard you.
Suzanne, do you have a favorite teammate? I know you're trying
You're
to
on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, and I had to move locations. So I couldn't hear you. But, you know, I look back at what Sue said, and I kind of forgot about Ann Kennedy and Jeannie. And I remember being, you know, a freshman. The sport so well. They knew the sport so well, but they were like seniors, and I was a freshman, and I was just like, oh, but they were so down to earth, even though I was somewhat terrified of them. So, but everybody was great.
Thanks, Suzanne. Shelley, another question from you.
Yeah, sure. What advice would you give about networking and finding the right job after school? Rini, do you want to start this one?
You'll find a job after school. It might not be the right job. Like it might be, and that's awesome. But for me, it wasn't. But I got it through networking. I got my, I got my job at the Blackstone Group through Mark Brugan. I can still remember, and he was a Bucknellian, and I didn't email. That's a lie. I called him because that was back in the day, and they had a job for me, right? My grad school was because I went to Bucknell. I went back to Bucknell for grad school. I used someone in Severna Park who told me that Severn needed a coach. So it might not be the right job, but you will find jobs. And then eventually one's going to stick. So I would have to say that most of my opportunities were networking after college with people I graduated with. Absolutely.
Thank you. Liz, any networking advice?
Yes, stay in touch with your teammates because you never know. It could be their parents who maybe have some sort of job that might come up and they may think of you, but I would definitely stay in touch with your teammates and do things like this. Because it's been a long time since I've seen Sue Gray, and I was just thinking about what she was saying about Jeannie and Anne. By the way, I stay in touch with Ann Kennedy, and I stay in touch with Jeannie Minahan, and I stay in touch with Nancy Williams and Laura Kinney and Jill Henry, and on and on and on. So it's those are invaluable connections, and it's not just socially, but also professionally. So.
Thank you so much. Sue, any networking advice for us?
I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to bother, your teammate's father. I don't want to bother him. And you know what I don't think young people realize is that older people like us would love to help you. So you have to put yourself out there, and it's okay to ask because they're ready and willing to help. Or say, hey, I can't help you, but, talk to so-and-so, just kind of like the other lady said. So just don't be afraid to ask. Just go for it. Go for the ground ball at 100%, at 100%, not 50. Just go after it and you'll get it. So, and the only other thing is just, find something you love. It's kind of funny because, I had finance and hated it, and then my kids, and then I coached, and I loved coaching, but I was ready for something else. And I went back to school when I was 46. So know that you don't have to be stuck. And like Renee said, she did 1 year in New York and said, no, thanks, and went teaching. So you're never stuck and you can always keep evolving, and just keep asking. Yep.
Thank you. Heidi, anything to add?
So networking back then was a little bit harder, I think, because it was definitely a phone call and tracking people down. Now, you've got Facebook, you've got all this stuff, which is super cool. And I strongly encourage you to network. As far as what are you going to do with your life sort of thing? I can tell you, I ended up being a business major who lasted 1 year in business like Renee, and then went to Temple for a master's in sports medicine, became a trainer and a therapist, and ultimately studied and went to med school when I was 30. So you just got to go with what your gut tells you and not think that everything is, what you're doing, you have to keep doing the rest of your life. There's a lot of people to support you, and especially Bucknell people, really cool. And everyone's welcome to reach out to me. And I'm sure anybody else here, now that we're so easily accessible on Facebook. And you just be patient. Don't be in a hurry. That's it.
Thank you. Suzanne, if you're there, anything to add?
No, just don't be afraid to ask. Because my kids are sometimes afraid to ask. And you know what? Everybody's willing to help. Just ask the question, and you're going to get no's, but you might get a lot of yeses too. So just ask the question and keep in touch with people. It is a different ballgame now than when we were looking for jobs.
Thank you, guys. Coach?
Okay, thanks, Shel. The last question is if you have any advice to myself as the head coach of the program, and maybe thinking about some of the things your favorite coaches did for your teams.
I'll start, and I'll echo what Sue says. Sue works at a great, well-established lacrosse program up the street. at Severna Park, and I worked at Severn, similar. And we trying to get Bucknell coaches to look at our girls has always been difficult. I think we have tons of girls in our area at Annapolis.
Why?
Honestly, I don't know. I've never sent a player to Bucknell. I've sent players to Virginia and Georgetown and Maryland. And honestly, Severn is like little Bucknell. And so this is a very specific plea, but you guys should really come down to the area. I mean, there are a lot of schools down here, St. Mary's, Severna Park, Severn, and it just doesn't, I don't know what it is. I know Bucknell's very tilted towards kind of New Jersey, Philly, New York, but I'm telling you, there are players down here. So it's very specific advice. I think you wanted something more ethereal, but that's.
I actually really like the practical advice.
That's very practical advice. I've got players right now. I don't coach anymore, but I know them and I teach them who would be awesome for you guys.
Yeah, we actually don't get a ton of interest, to be honest, from the Maryland area, and I'm always shocked by that. So I think that's a great pipeline to start.
I don't know, Sue can probably give her wisdom there too, but we just, and really, what area has more lacrosse per capita than, I don't know, where I'm actually sitting? Not very many places, so.
I'll tell you, it's not Lewisburg, Rini, but we're working on that, right? So, Sue, do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, definitely come down this way. We have, just in our area, tons of quality level players, and, in a group of 12, 10 go D1 and 2 go D3. So they're here, and Bucknell is such an amazing school and has so much to offer. And, I just love it. But one thing, before I forget, I went down into the basement and I dug into the closet, and Liz, you'll probably remember this, but do you remember this jacket? Where it has field hockey and lacrosse written on it?
Wait, I have that.
And then the front. Yeah, I bet you do. And then this, that's the front, because almost every field hockey player played lacrosse. And so you didn't have enough money, so you just combined everything. And all of our uniforms were field hockey stick and a lacrosse stick and, in a cross. And, but anyway, I just dug this out just for and I kept forgetting to show you, but I had to do that.
That's amazing you still have that. That's great.
You know what? It's probably like.
Heidi has hers.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Purged the house we've been in for 24 years, and I kept that.
Yes, exactly. I never wear it, but it's really warm. But anyway, back to your question. I definitely agree. Come south. I would love to, but I'm not personally into coaching anymore, but I love to go and watch it. My thing with coaching, and I coached, like Rini said, 20 years at Severna Park High School, and we had 14 state championships. I did the defense there. But the biggest thing is, like, you look at you look at your roster and you say, you're like, oh my gosh, we're just going to kill it this year. But it's the years where you look at your roster and you go, oh no, like, I just don't have the quality players. And sometimes those were my teams that they were the champ, would win the state championship. And part of that is because they learned to trust each other. And we worked really hard on defense. Everybody's going to make a mistake, but it's how you react to your mistake. And letting the kids know that, like, yeah, you just missed that check. Well, you can just stop playing and stand there, or you can recover because somebody's coming to slide, and so you need to be there. So letting them know, go for it, make a mistake, because your teammate is going to be there. And instilling that into them, and just learning to trust each other, and whatever fun, cohesive things that you had to do. We did, little notes. We had big sisters and little sisters, and they would write notes to each other, and just little things. And they, just so they got to know each other real well. And because, like, the seniors are kind of doing their little senior thing. So Shelley, really find some fun things to do that could just be, a note, like we used to do. Oh my God, we'd buy ring dings for each other. That's what we'd give to each other on a bus trip, ring dings. But it had a little note in there. It was just something like, hope your test went well, or whatever. just learning to be a cohesive unit. And, the whole saying, you're only as good as, your 30th player, but making sure that 30th player knows that they're part of that team, is because it's mental. Like physical is there, yeah, but it's the level of where they are mentally, and that is going to make you the winner. And it's going to get you that win when it's a close game, because they're just going to be playing their hearts out for each other. So that's what I'm thinking from all those years of coaching.
Thanks, Sue. Heidi, do you have any advice?
I was not a coach, but as a player, well, I was a soccer coach, not a lacrosse coach. I think you need to listen to your players. I think you need to kind of understand the dynamics. There's things that are going on behind the scenes that you may not be aware of and that need to kind of be smoothed out to keep everybody that cohesive unit that Sue's talking about. Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt, was if I just, that respect of a coach to a player, especially at the college level. I mean, high school, I don't really, whatever, but at a college level, like, you're almost the same age, like work together to solve the problem together. And I think it sort of makes that team bond more, instead of like somebody's a leader and everybody has to follow, that maybe they work as a team. But again, I was not a college coach, so I don't know, but I do, like I said, I do have my buck now, and I still wear it proudly from 30 years ago or whatever, 35. And Rini, I still keep this on my wall. I don't know if anyone can see it, but Rini's in there to this day. And Michelle Mannion and everybody else. So Susie Lang.
That is awesome.
I'm proud of what we did. We worked hard, and it was a different world back then, Shelley. But it's good to be a woman in sports.
And,
really.
And at the risk of burdening you with stories, I remember, and you probably still there, Heidi, when we realized, and I think you were, that the boys lacrosse team got more money for lunch than we did. It's true. They we got $9 and they got $14. And I said, why? And then the answer was, AD, well, Hartzell, what was it? He's like, well, they eat more. I'm like, what? That really? They eat more? So I said, so do you give the offensive line guys more than the kickers? Like, what? Why? What is that?
I also want to know, Rini, when is the comedy career going to start? Because you definitely are on it. You're on it.
I'm a high school teacher. It's just, I have to do that. But no, really, it was unbelievable. So just be happy that you get the same amount of money. I'm assuming, Nuke, they did. That's what I got.
Suzanne, do you have any advice for myself?
Okay, I totally cheated and I asked my college lacrosse player, my daughter, I'm like, so what would you say to the coach? And she said, just make sure they have fun, because if they're not having fun and enjoying it, it's not the point. There's no point. I mean, they're not going to do well, because if they have to be liking it and they have to be having fun doing it. So
good answer.
And I hope you guys get a season. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I know.
Yeah, Shelley's a senior, so.
Yeah, I hope you get a season.
Thanks, Suzanne. Liz, we'll finish with you. Any advice?
Well, I only coached very briefly, but I would echo the sentiment that have fun, make it fun, because it's true. If it's hard enough, especially at Bucknell, it's a very, very competitive university. So anything you can do to make it fun for them and to take their minds off the schoolwork, that would be awesome. And don't forget Western Pennsylvania. It's not Maryland as far as lacrosse is concerned, but my son went to Mount Lebanon High School, and they're like a mini Bucknell, and they're very good academically, but they're also pretty good with their sports. So don't overlook us over here.
Thanks, Liz. Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. That's our last question. It's really nice to meet everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed connecting with myself, Shelly, and each other again, too.
It was great seeing you guys.
Nice. Good.
So before I wrap, I'm going to wrap it up here, but I have a question for Heidi. Heidi, when was the last time you were back on campus?
That's a very good question.
Because you mentioned the cornfield. If you look.
No, actually, I was back on campus not long ago, because I know that it's a whole stadium and all that stuff
right
now.
Behind me. That's the field.
Yes. So I did see that, and that was probably, oh yeah, well, I went, actually, I lied. 4 years ago, my daughter went and visited, and she got accepted, but she ultimately went to Penn State. But who can afford Bucknell? But
Well,
so,
I just wanted to let you know that the cornfield is long gone.
I know,
We all remember it. We all remember it.
I lived in the mods. It was
did I.
insane, and we were next to the baboons or whatever, and we risked our lives crossing 15 on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But
We have
Mods
a
were
tunnel
good.
now.
Mods were good. I
the
lived
last
there.
time I was really back there, honestly, like to hang out and party, was probably the year after I graduated, because all of my best friends, because I was the only senior in my class, were all the girls below me. So Jen Bates, Cindy Damel, Beth Hoddle were my roommates, and I came back to watch them play and visit them, and that was probably the last time I was really at Bucknell.
Well, I asked the question for a reason, and I'm trying to segue into what I'm going to say next. And that is, Coach and I have been talking a lot about the Bucknell women's lacrosse family and how segmented and fractured it is, because we've had so many coaches over the years. So one of the things that Jackie and I are going to work on together is bringing you all back and reuniting that family and building that family, because it can mean so much to the current student athletes in the program, just from a networking standpoint, to a support standpoint, everything. And it's a program that there's no reason that it can't have success here. And we're really excited that Jackie's on board, and we're not letting her go for at least 5 or 6 years. I don't know if she's been told that yet, but she has to hang around. So, but I just wanted to let you know that we'll be reaching out to look for your help and suggesting ways we can reunite people. And then turning my attention to Shelly real quick. Shelly, thank you for taking the time out to be on the call tonight. Best of luck with the semester. Stay healthy. And as was mentioned earlier by some of the ladies on the call, we're keeping our fingers crossed that you will have a competitive season in the spring, and we'll all be pulling for you. So thank you. And again, ladies, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate you guys all being on. And to those of you who watched at home tonight, thank you for doing that, and go Bison.